Hello. Today we're going to talk about how to tell the difference between a plant cell and an animal cell. And this is going to be really helpful as we talk about the different kingdoms and we go into our microscope lab where we're looking at plant cells and animal cells. So pay close attention to the information that we cover in this video because it's going to help you in the lab and it's going to help you to write your summarizing answers, answer your summarizing questions for that lab. So let's first talk about plant cells and animal cells. We know that life is broken down into three different domains: domain bacteria, domain archaea, and domain eukarya. And we know that there are four kingdoms that we're talking about in domain eukarya. There's the animal, fungi. These over here are our protists, and plantae here. And so those are the four kingdoms that we talk about in domain eukarya. Today we're going to be looking at animal cells and plant cells. And so all plants are made of eukaryotic cells, and all animal cells are made of eukaryotic cells. That's why they're in the domain eukarya. And so let's look a little bit closer now at animal cells. So animal cells are the cells that make up living things like this little sheep here. And so animal cells are eukaryotic, and so therefore they contain a nucleus. And they also contain other membrane-bound organelles. Remember that eukaryotic cells are complex. They have membrane-bound organelles, one of those organelles being a nucleus. They also have a roundish shape, a generic roundish shape, as compared to a plant cell, which tends to have a squarish shape because they have cell walls. Animal cells also have a cell membrane, which allows certain things in and certain things out, but doesn't allow certain things in and stops certain things from leaving. So it has a cell membrane, and we're going to talk a lot more about cell membranes as the year progresses. But know that animal cells do have a cell membrane. However, they do not have a cell wall. We have skeletons, which gives us structure. So this animal here can stand up because it has structure given to it by its skeleton. Whereas plants don't have skeletons. They depend on their cell walls to help them to be firm and to stand up. Let's talk about that in a little bit. Animal cells in the lab that we're going to be looking at look like this. These are going to be cheek cells. They come from the animal ewe. And so these are animal cells. They came from an animal cheek or a human cheek. And what we're going to do is we're going to dye them with iodine or something called Lugol's solution. It's the same stuff that we put on our arms before we get a shot or before we give blood. It'll kill bacteria, but it'll be okay for us. It's not going to hurt us. And so we're going to use it to stain animal cells, and it's going to show contrast. So here you can see that the nucleus kind of pops out here. You can see it only because we stained it. If we did not stain these cheek cells, then we wouldn't be able to see the nucleus. So the nucleus is shown with the stain, and you can actually see, if you look closely inside the nucleus, you might see a few dots. Those are called the nucleoluses. That's another organelle, and you might even be able to see other mitochondria or other little organelles, but they're so small that we can't really differentiate between what they are. We might just be able to see some stuff in there, but we will be able to see nucleuses for sure, or nuclei for sure. So remember that the organelles are going to be there, but they're too small to be seen. You cannot see the cell membrane, but the cell membrane is just going to be sort of the outside. It's sort of like the walls, but they're not walls. There's a membrane, and so that's going to be on the outside. So when you're labeling that on your lab, you may not necessarily see specifically the cell membrane, but it's right here. It's the edge, and you can see these are the nuclei here. So these are all different cells. This is one cell. This is a cell. This is a cell, so this is the nucleus. And you can see it gets thick right here. That's because there's many layers of cheek cells, and you can sort of see through them. So this is just one cell here, but this looks like there's 6 or 7 different cells all over the place. So there's more cells here, more layers here, fewer layers here, but you can see that each of these cells have a nucleus. All right, let's talk about plant cells. Plant cells are eukaryotic cells, which means they contain a nucleus and membrane-bound organelles. They tend to have a squarish shape. What you can see right here is more of a, here's your generic plant cell. They tend to have a more squarish shape, which we will see in a moment. They have cell walls, which give it structure. So if you look at this plant here, this spider plant, it doesn't have a skeleton, but the leaves can stand up. And that's really important because it's the cell walls that allow it to have that structure. While they have a cell wall, they also have a cell membrane. So the inside of the cell walls, there's a membrane that's pushed up against that cell wall. So plant cells have both a cell membrane and a cell wall. So the cell wall gives it structure, but the cell membrane is sort of like what allows things and is what stops things from passing through into and out of the cell. It's sort of like the guard. Now, plant cells also have chloroplasts. They allow a plant to photosynthesize. So that is, you can see right here, the chloroplast. Those are going to be what give plants the ability to photosynthesize or be an autotroph, to get energy from the sun. And so this is what the plant cells are going to look like in our lab. And we can see here that we can see these chloroplasts. So this is one cell right here. This is one cell right here. This is one cell right here. And so we have all of these different chloroplasts. And if you're lucky, we might be able to see cytoplasmic streaming, which means these chloroplasts are moving around, which is really cool. We are not going to be staining these with Lugol solution or iodine. And so therefore, we won't be able to see the nucleus, but the nucleus is there. We can't see it because we didn't stain it, but it doesn't mean that it's not there. It's a eukaryotic cell, and so it's present. You can see here, in between the cells, we can see that these are the cell walls. And you can't really tell in this picture, it's not close enough. You can't really see the cell membrane. It is there though, and it's just pushed up, up against the side of those cell walls. They're kind of squished together. So when we're labeling things, make sure that you label that here's the cell wall, and on the inside of that cell, pushed up against the cell wall, is the cell membrane. So we can see that cell wall. We can see how it differentiates between these two cells, but we can't necessarily see the cell membrane. All right, so I think you guys are ready for the lab. You'll be able to answer the questions, and I will see you out there. Have a great day.